All right, we're going to be working on writing equations. We have already done and worked on, let's see if I can get my pen to write here. Hello, pen. There we go. Oh, go back. We had equations in slope-intercept form. Remember that was y equals mx plus b. For example, that was like y equals 2x plus 3. Remember, this is telling me right here that the 2 is the slope and the 3 is the y-intercept. The reason why we like equations like this is because I can graph them. I can start at my y-intercept, plot that point, and then I can do the slope, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, and I'm able to graph a line. Darn, I keep hitting the wrong thing. Then, we also have things in standard form is what we did. Standard form, ax plus by equals c. So, for example, we had equations that said 3x plus 2y equals 12. This was in standard form where x and y was on the same side of the equation. Then what we worked on was taking equations from standard form and moving them into slope-intercept. Okay, so right now let's practice for a second. Let's go back and remember. I want you to write down 3x plus 2y equals 12. And now I want us to take a minute and try and remember how to get it into slope-intercept form where the y, or we call it solving for y. So to review, to review what we've done, to get y by itself, we're going to move the 3x over here. To move it to the other side, this is a positive 3x. I need to subtract 3x from each side. These cancel. I get 2y equals negative 3x plus 12. Now this y right here, y has to be by itself. So you now need to go and divide by 2 to everything. And I get y equals negative 3/2. Leave it as a fraction because that's your slope, plus 6. See, now from here you can find the y-intercept and the slope and figure out your graph. Let's try one more before we go on to today's material. Okay, right here, take this one in standard form and move it to slope-intercept. Remember, that equal sign is the balance. You want to get this y by itself. I'm going to move the 3x over there to the other side. So I'm going to add 3x to each side. I get negative 4y equals 3x plus 24. Now I'm going to take the number in front of the y and I'm going to divide everything by negative 4. Right here I get y equals negative 3/4. Again, leave it as a fraction. 24 divided by negative 4 is negative 6. That's what you're supposed to do. All you're supposed to do is get the y by itself. We are rearranging the equation. Now, looking into what we have, we are now going to start with point slope form. So now with this equation, which is on your formula chart on for your state test for your EOC, point slope form is this right here where it says y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. M is the slope, and x1 and y1 are the numbers in an ordered pair that they give you. So for example, if they gave you a slope of 2 and gave you the point 4, 6. And they said, write the equation that goes through this point and has a slope of 2. What you would be able to do is plug in your numbers right here. So the slope is 2. That's where this is coming from. In the m, we put the 2 in there. 4 is the x. So you would put it right here in for the x. The y is 6, and that's why we put that in there. Now, say that we put that in, just plugged in those numbers, but we're looking at a graph, and we're trying to figure out what the equation is of the graph. We should be able to rewrite this equation into slope-intercept form. So on your boards, write this down right here. We're going to just start right here. You're right. Y minus 6 equals 2 parentheses x minus 4. If I want to rearrange this to slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start here with drawing my line down. You always do your parentheses first. So I'm going to leave y minus 6 here equals 2 times x, 2x, 2 times negative 4, negative 8. Okay, you do the parentheses first. Now, I need to move this minus 6 to the other side. So I will add 6 to each side. Y equals, that 6 can't go with the 2x because remember that the x's and the regular numbers stay separate. So I have 2x negative 8 plus 6 minus 2. This equation is equivalent to this one right here. Okay, looking at another one, if you had this, if it told you a slope of 2/3 and a point of negative 1/3, and they told you to write the equation, and they want you to put it into point slope form right here. So remember that the slope is the m, the x is the first number, and the y is the second number. So now when we go to write this, I'm going to have y minus y1. So it's y minus 3. Let's see if it comes down here. There we go. Y minus 3 equals, what comes next is the slope. The slope is 2/3, and then x minus x1. Now, notice right here that they changed it to positive. That's because in the formula it says x minus whatever x1 is, and x1 is negative 1. Well, a negative times a negative makes that positive. All right, let's look at another one. Let's see here. All right, so example 3. Take a minute and write this into point slope form. Plug in your numbers, and then we'll go, and if you think you know how to solve for y after that, do that. Okay, so right here, first off, I know that the slope is negative 3. The slope goes right here. It says y minus y1. Here's my y. I'll bring this 8 right there. And then x minus x1. X is 2. So all I did was put my numbers, pull them into those spots. Now from here, let's change it into slope-intercept form. So I'm going to draw my line at the equal to bar. I have y minus 8 equals, now I'm going to take negative 3 times x, negative 3x, negative 3 times negative 2, positive 6. Now the only thing I need to do is move this negative 8 to the other side. So I'm going to have plus 8 and plus 8. So I get y equals negative 3x plus 14. That's your equation. This is equivalent to this. I keep saying equivalent because on your test they're going to ask you that question. Remember, equivalent means basically the same. Which one equals it? All right, try this one. Oh, I guess there's nothing there. Try number 4. So for this example, it says y minus y1. Well, there's y1. Let me put that down here. And then the m is the slope. And x minus x1. All right. Here's what I notice. Y minus negative 1. Minus a negative. So this is a negative times a negative. This becomes y plus 1 equals 1/2. And then I have x minus 7. Now, I want to change this into slope-intercept form. So the first thing I'm going to do is my distributive property. Y plus 1 equals 1/2 times x is 1/2 x. 1/2 times negative 7. You can either write it as negative 7 over 2, or you can do it as negative 3.5. You could use a decimal here if you wanted to, because that's going to just be my slope, my y-intercept. I'm going to leave it as, I'm going to put it as 3.5. It'll make it easier when I move this 1 over. So as I go over here and I subtract 1 from each side, I get y equals 1/2 x minus 4.5. This equation is equivalent to this one. Well, and to this one. All right. Here we go. Now, let's try. Go ahead and try number 1. Do this one now, please. I want you to write it in point slope form, then in slope intercept. Remember that the equation for point slope form is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So as you begin, we have y minus y1. y1 right here is negative 4. So I have negative 4 equals m, which is 2/3 times x minus x1. x1 right here at 3. Now, one thing I see first off is that I have these two negatives right next to each other. So that becomes y plus 4 equals 2/3 x minus 3. This is point slope form right there. Now I want us to write it into slope intercept form. So as we do that, y plus 4 comes down. Then I have 2/3 times x, 2/3 times 3. So it equals 2/3 x. Now, 2/3 times negative 3. If you just put in your calculator, put the 2/3 in parentheses. So parentheses like this. Parentheses 2 divide 3 parentheses times negative 3 like that. Whoop. It'll give you negative 2. So this becomes minus 2. Now I need to move this 4 to the other side. So I have to subtract 4 from each side. So I get y equals 2/3 x minus 6. There it is in slope-intercept form. All right, try this one right here. I want you to write it in point slope form and then rewrite it into slope-intercept. Oh, let's see here. There we go. So here I have y minus y1 right there, 5, equals m is the slope times x minus x1, which is 0. Well, let me get, all right, there we go. There we go. Right here, that minus 0, I don't really need to do it. I can just forget about it. I have y minus 5 equals 2 times x, which is 2x. I add 5 to each side. Y equals 2x plus 5. Which makes sense because if you remembered when you looked at it, here's the slope, there's the y-intercept. You should be able to write your equation just by plugging it in right there without rearranging it. Now, usually when we write equations, they're in slope-intercept form, and so we're just going to continue practicing putting it into point-slope form and then changing it into slope-intercept. Okay, so let's see. Let's do number 5 right here. It's already written in point-slope form. Let's do this. Right now, looking at this, before we rearrange it, okay? Before we rearrange it on your boards, I want you to tell me what is the slope and what is the point they are using. Write that down and let me see. What is the slope? What is the point they are using? All right, so when I'm looking at this, I should know that this number right there in front of the parentheses, that's my slope. The slope is 2. The point I am using, I have 4 and I have 6. So my point is 4, 6. That's what you should have had down. Okay? Now what it's asking us to do is to rewrite it into slope-intercept form. Now, what do you do first? The parentheses, the multiplying right here. So I have y minus 6 equals 2 times x, 2x. 2 times negative 4, negative 8. From here, add 6 to each side. We get y equals 2x, negative 8 plus 6, negative 2. There's our equation. All right, so this next one, I want you to do both things. Right now, first, I want you to write what is the point they are using and what is the slope, and then I want you to rewrite it into slope-intercept. Do that now, please. When you look up here and try and figure out what the point is and what the slope is, I know the slope is right here at 2/3. Now, my point, here's what you need to remember. The formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now, the x number, see how there's a plus 1 right here? When you write it in the formula, this is x. It was x minus negative 1 because when it is not a minus, that means that that number right there is a negative. So your x should be negative 1. The y number, there's a minus still there, so that means that your point is a positive 3. That's what you should have gotten for the point and the slope. Now, when we're going through and trying to put it into slope-intercept form, I have y minus 3, then do the parentheses, equals 2/3 x plus 2/3. Then you needed to add 3 to each side. That becomes y equals 2/3 x plus 2/3 plus 3 is 3 2/3. Not a very fun y-intercept, but it would still tell you where to start. Okay. Let's see. Right here, ready? It's already written in point slope form. So what I want you to do first, I want you to tell me what the slope is and what the point is they're using. And I want you to rewrite it into slope-intercept form, what we just did. Do that now, please. First off, what number is the slope? Negative 4. My point, my x number right here, see how it has a plus? So it's got to be negative 1 and then 3. So now, first thing I do, I need to do the distributive property. So y minus 3 stays here. I've got negative 4 times x, negative 4x, negative 4 times 1, negative 4. Now add 3 to each side. I get y equals negative 4x minus 1. There's your equation in slope-intercept form. This one, all I want you to do at first is just write it in point-slope form. Okay, the formula y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Write that first. So when we go to write it, y minus y1. y1 is 4, so y minus 4 equals. My slope is negative 2/3, and then x minus x1. That's what you should have written. Now take this and rewrite it into slope-intercept form. So let's move it around like we did on number 3. Do that now. So we start by the distributive property. I have y minus 4, negative 2/3 times x, negative 2/3 x. Negative 2/3 times negative 1, that's positive 2/3. Now add 4 to each side. Y equals negative 2/3 x plus 4 2/3. Now, let's remember we should be able to do this from what we've done in the past. We've got 2 ordered pairs, and you've got to find the equation in slope-intercept form. So there's a couple different ways we can do this, okay? And to remember, what we've done in the past is we've made a table. And then we've put the points in there, x and y. So we put in there 4, 5, and 8, 4. Okay? So to remember, we went through and found the slope first. To find the slope, you have to do delta y over delta x. The change in y, how do I get from 5 to 4? Minus 1. Delta x, how do I get from 4 to 8? Plus 4. So now delta y over delta x is negative 1 over 4. That's my slope. That's my m. So you put m, remember it's mx plus b. M is a slope, so I'm going to put negative 1/4. Then you multiply it by your x number. Negative 1/4 times 4. When you multiply these two numbers together, you get negative 1. What do you have to add or subtract to negative 1 to get 5? Negative 1 plus 6. That should work here. Negative 1/4 times 8 is negative. When you multiply these together, it's negative 2. Negative 2 plus 6 is 4. So my equation becomes y equals negative 1/4 x plus 6. Remember, to check this, you can put this into y1 in your calculator, press second graph, and these points should be in that table. Okay? Let's try and remember. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, they're not the same points. Okay, right now, try and ignore all this. Try and find the equation of this line the same way I just showed you. We're putting it into slope-intercept form. Make a table, find delta y over delta x, and figure out your y-intercept. Do that now, please. I'm going to show you two different ways to go through, because one of the things is just to do what we just did and put 2, -2, and 6, 4. Okay. Find, I've got x and y, and we can find the entire equation from this table right here. I can go through and find delta y, the change in y, plus 6. Delta x plus 4. Delta y divided by delta x is 6 divided by 4. You need to reduce that. Remember, you can put in the calculator 6 divide 4, math, enter. It will do it for you, or I just divided 2 out, and I get 3/2. This is my slope. That's my m. So right here, I'm going to put 3/2. I'm going to take it times my x. Times 2, times 6, doesn't matter. Now, when I multiply these two numbers together, I get 3. What do I need to add or subtract to 3 to get to -2? -5. Some people really struggle with this. 3/2 times 6, that is 9. What do you have to do to 9 to get to 4? It should be the same thing, -5. So your equation becomes y equals 3/2 x minus 5. Say this last part messes you up and you struggle with that. One thing you could do is, after you found the slope, when you found the slope of 3/2, and you could pick either one of these points. Say I picked 6, 4. Let's put it in point slope form. Y minus y1, y minus 4 equals m 3/2 times x minus x1. Right? I just took these points, or took those numbers and plugged it in. I can multiply these right here, just like we were doing. Y minus 4 equals 3/2 x. 3/2 times -6, -9. Well, now, add 4 to each side. Y equals 3/2 x minus 5. Isn't that what we just found? Using the table? We can use it doing it either way. Okay?